Now we head to Arizona, where in a recent state Supreme Court ruling, the body decided to go back to a Civil War era law that bans all abortion with the exception of the life of the mother. Even more crazy, members of the state Senate had a prayer circle speaking in tongues. Helen has more on the story. Helen?
Well, just when you think the government can't get any more bizarre, politicians just continue to bring on the crazy. The Arizona State Senate success in overturning Roe v. Wade now has one of the most restrictive bans on bodily autonomy in the United States. This happened by means of a Civil War era law, which was written into the books before Arizona was even a state. Even more crazy, members of Arizona State Senate had a prayer circle and spoke in tongues. Senator Anthony Kern led the prayer, though the specifics are lacking for what they asked their invisible sky daddy for. This is another example of religion invading not only our state government, but using said religion to inform policy. This story is from The Friendly Atheist by Helen Mehta on April 11, 2024. Okay. Now, those of you that have been that have seen me on the show, and those of you on my panel that are on my buds, this makes me mad because I'm tired, so tired of religion taking people's ability away to make decisions for their own bodies, their own families, their own lives. I feel like a broken record. I'm getting sick of being this broken record. And I know that the majority of people, even people that are religious, agree with me. This is a fucked up law. And the fact that we have state representatives praying and speaking in tongues on the Senate floor in Arizona, it's fucking weird. It's disturbing, and I have questions. What has happened? What has happened? Because, okay. Take a moment. I'm gonna center myself. I'm gonna talk to Satan. Okay, I'm gonna take a moment.
And pour out.
Yeah. Okay. Let me take a moment. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand there are plenty of people in government that are religious. There are plenty, and they're not all Christians. You know, there are plenty of people that have many different views, and I think that's a good thing. I think that if we live in a democracy, that means that every single type of person, depending on their background, their sexuality, you know, what the color of their skin is, their culture, should be represented. This is very important to me living in a democracy. But what happens is through that, the religious people have said, oh, you know what, we get to be number one say, and fuck you all. Basically, that's the attitude that's happened. And the fact that they had to go back to the Civil War to bring this law about says where their mindset is. Where you can marry a 10-year-old and everybody was dying from dysentery, this. And also you could, there were laws against beating your wife, but the wick couldn't be any bigger than your thumb. So that's the type of stuff we're looking at right now, where they got these ideas from. And also that if I would hope that that the people that make our policy wouldn't have a prayer circle and start speaking gibberish. I find that questionable, and I worry about your ability to make laws for your constituents and the state and your state as large. Like I have questions and I wonder why. So, and also there's some Christian persecution, perceived Christian persecution going on. We can talk about that a little bit more. But this This is very problematic and unfortunately is a symptom of a wider problem that continues to keep happening. So anyway, I said that. I'm going to go have tea with Satan and I'll be back.
Very good. While Helen has tea with Satan, let's go back to this whole thing about how the Senate, specifically State Senator Anthony Kern, decided to have this whole prayer circle. And I wanted to ask you, Infidel, if you can just give us a little bit more sordid detail about the Glossalia gathering that happened in Arizona.
I have to say that being raised around that, it was definitely a triggering event just to sit and listen to this yabba dabba doing, and it was just, you know, they present this veneer of holiness or whatever they want to call it, but the truth is they're doing exactly what Jesus said not to do. They shouldn't be praying in public and beating the floors and pounding their chest and doing all of this. It just is another example of how they want to put their religiosity front and center because it's what they want to be judged by. It's what people want people to judge them as, is they're the good Christians who want to bring godly things to you. So how can you be against that? I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but it was some kind of, the God haters are out against us now, when somebody complained about their whole speaking in tongues nonsense. And no, this isn't about God haters. This is about people who, just want fundamental rights that anybody should be able to have. And going back, and anytime your group is going back to the Civil War era to defend a law, and as Helen mentioned, where 10-year-olds were allowed to marry, maybe you want to reconsider what your goals are. So I think that they have made this front and center, though. So that is the one good thing, is because all eyes are on Arizona now. Whether the Yabba Dabba Do had anything to do with it, I have my doubts. But okay, be careful what you wish for. As I've said before, I don't think the Republicans ever wanted to win this. Now that they've got it, it's sitting firmly in their laps. I've mentioned the dog catching the car before and saying it again. I think we're seeing the car go back up in reverse and roll over them a few times here because now they own it. They asked for it, they got it, and this is what happens when you leave it to the states. That's well, I guess not really because it was a territory then, but same premises apply.
You bring up a really good point, especially about, the Republican lawmakers, because they're the ones who kind of like perpetuated this whole thing, and the article actually highlights the complicity of Republican lawmakers in advancing regressive policies that harm women's reproductive rights. And I know that, Jason, you have some opinions about this particular story, and I would love to hear your opinions if you would please expand.
Helen and Infidel said smart things. I just, what the fuck, man? I don't even know what's going on. They're literally doing fucking magic spells, saying weird fake words, making berserk sounds while bowing in a circle and beating on the ground. I mean, seriously, what the fuck, man? And these are the same people who are worried about atheists who use scientific methodology to confirm reality. That we literally have fucking wizards speaking magic enchantments in the middle of a fucking government facility where they make decisions about people's lives. Something has to fucking change. I agree with Helen. So something has to fucking change. This is terrifying. This is the type of fucking extremist, religious, performative fucking nonsense that we see allowed. I mean, on the world stage at this point, we see we see people speaking in tongues. It blows my fucking mind. This is supposed to be home for secular reasoning. This is a place where we should be able to exchange ideas without the poisonous fangs of religion there to drain the life out of any exploit aimed at increasing the well-being of the majority. This is fucking just lunacy to me that this is even allowed, and that anybody takes this shit seriously. And I agree with Infidel. This is the type of shit I grew up around. Was this type of shit? Was people fucking just blurting out fucking nonsense, and then people pretending like it was poignant, and then you're being raised around this shit and you start getting emotional reactions to this shit. Your identity gets fucking foreclosed, and you're actually like caring about this. This is fucking just nonsense. And we have people literally making decisions that affect lives, literal lives and health, medical fucking decisions, while they do some fucking magic cult shit. And that's what it is. This is some fucking cult shit, and it's disgusting, and I'm appalled. And I think Infidel's the one who brought it up. This is what happens when you do states' rights, and that term states' rights comes from people trying to keep their territory, their state, a fucking racist hellhole. That is what it has progressed from, is racism. It has been propagated by the same fucking breed of people, these motherfuckers, man. And it's disgusting that they have that what they say and what they do bears so much gravitas on our existence. It's crazy making. The fact that this actually makes an impact, and these people are even allowed to make these decisions, is it just sucks all optimism out of me. And now I'm just trying to see, how the fuck do I get out of this country once my kid's old enough? I don't want to be here anymore. I'm in fucking Texas. And if y'all read the shit that the Texas GOP issued, I think it's 2016, 2017, their mission statement, it's the same shit. And these are the motherfuckers that are making decisions. And especially in places like Arizona and places like Texas, I believe Arizona is the same way. It's a majority state. That means the people in power are not representative of the majority of the people and their needs within their own fucking state. And I don't know. Anything out of this, I'm just gonna be rambling and saying more hate. I'm gonna give back to you, Cynthia, because I'm disgusted, and I don't see any other way other than barring these fucking people, because this isn't banning religious expression. You can do whatever fucking weird shit you want to do. I do weird shit. Everyone here does weird shit, but I don't do it unless somebody consents, and I do it in the fucking place that it's fucking meant to be, right? I'm not doing a cage fight while I'm on the job site, right? That's ridiculous. I wouldn't just start fucking shadow boxing and punching people, you know? So you want to fucking say your weird gibberish shit and you want to get all fucking hyped up, do it in your bedroom. You do it in your place of worship. Keep it out of my fucking shit, because at that point you are hindering religious freedom for all the other religious people who don't practice the fucking cult shit that these fucking people practice. So
yeah, I think it's very appropriate to bring that up, especially like when people are imbuing their belief systems into how they are conducting law. They are basically utilizing their own personal beliefs and come to mention that the Bible never addressed abortion. Matter of fact, if you really want to get into it, especially if we look at the Old Testament, if a woman was suspected of having relations outside of the marriage, that the husband was perfectly in his right to go to the priest, where the priest would mix up some type of magical concoction called bitter water. And if she drank it and she lost the baby, that means that she did in fact commit adultery. You know, so basically they were saying if she actually stepped outside the marriage and actually had or got pregnant from another person that was not her husband, then abortion was perfectly within the right, you know.
There you go.
So like, and so like this whole thing about, okay, we're going to do glossalia on the floor of the state Senate. We're going to completely ignore the establishment clause that makes no law to establish a religion, and also practice and says that people who are constituents of the United States can be whatever religion they decide. But that, and even Thomas Jefferson saying that the Establishment Clause was all about erecting a wall between state and church, that this is supposed to be a secular nation, and also how we conduct business and government, even in our states, should also be secular. So I find this whole thing, especially with State Senator Anthony Kern, very disturbing. Especially, Infidel, you brought it up, and I know that, and in actuality, Helen, in your notes, you brought it up too, about his whole thing about this whole God haters thing. Just because you're calling out something that they did that was considered religious in a government institution building when you're talking about policy. And according to the federal constitution, that is wrong. It's wrong. So, I'm curious to know from Helen and then from you, Infidel, what are the implications of this Senator Anthony Kern, even though I understand that it was the state Senate, that I'm not the state Senate, but the state Supreme Court that ruled that we're supposed to go back to an 1864 law, which, I have to also mention, I know that we talked about all types of other things that was illegal at that time, but I have to mention that this was also a time where it was legal to own a person. Okay, that we need to keep that in mind as well. And how, but going back to Anthony Kern, how is this whole implication about God haters, and basically, calling out this particular behavior on the Senate floor so problematic? Helen, you speak on that, and then Infidel, you speak on that.
I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again. I have a problem with religious persecution and God hating for a reason, is because if your sky daddy that you claim to love so much is the creator of the universe, and if someone saying like, hey, this law that you propose that harms half the population of your state, and says like, hey, this is not cool, man, stop that. And your response is that you're hating God, and God doesn't show up and defend himself, that's a you problem. That's a you problem. He's creator of the universe. He doesn't need you. Address the fucking issue that you actually caused. It is a straw man, moving the goalposts, terrible fallacy. Because what it's doing is, instead of addressing what they're actually doing, and they know what they're doing, they have been presented with the facts. They're not immune to these ideas. But what they're doing is that but since I believe in the Sky Daddy and I want political clout, and for the things I want to happen that need to happen, I'm going to align myself with terrible ideas. And like Infidel said, like, now they got the car, and even people within their own party are saying, oh, you know what, maybe this isn't such a great idea. But you know what? Too bad. You passed the fucking law. Now it's like, you made the bed. Now you got to fucking lie in it, man. Like, you don't get to play this game. And I also want to point out, I keep mentioning that, again, that Anthony Kern is associated with a hate group, which is the Alliance Defending Freedom. And again, this is another hate group. It was founded by 30 leaders of the Christian right that want to restrict rights for LGBTQ people and want to criminalize them and believe that there's a homosexual agenda and preach rhetoric that all queer people are child sexual abusers and it's just a whole lot of bad. This is who Anthony Kern is associated with and being funded by. Good for him. Yay. Fuck this guy. And then he goes and cries victim because he decides to have a prayer on the Senate floor and then cries, oh, you hate me because I love God. It's like, no, we hate you because one, you're a bigot and you're a sexist and you're using your religious liberty to restrict the rights of other people. That's why we're mad. That's why you're being called out. And you can't hide behind persecution when that your supposed persecution is taking away the rights and power of people living in your state, man. You don't get to cry that. I am so sorry for you. And that's the thing that makes me so angry. I'm angry because these motherfuckers again and again and again say freedom for me, not for thee. And it causes harm and it causes people's lives. And I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of people using religion as a reason why they get to be persecuted, to be persecutory, big words, persecutory and hateful to other people just so they make their sky daddy happy. Indeed. I live in a democracy. I want to live there. I don't want to live in your Jesus land. Thank you very much.
Well, we live in a representative government, but the representation should be of the people, not personal views. Adele, what say you?
Well, one thing that my concern is, and it's definitely adjacent to this, is the reality that when you start saying God haters and understanding what that means from a biblical sense, it makes me wonder, what do they plan to do with those people that they consider God haters? You know, the Bible says, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. So when you start taking that type of mentality and applying that to those anti-God God haters, you know, what happens to the people who have abortions? What happens to LGBTQ? What happens to people of whatever ilk? They may not just be Christian enough. It may just be that, you know, they're the wrong flavor of Christianity. But if you're not the right flavor, if you're not the flavor I am, then you could very easily be a God hater too. Yep. So if you don't have the magic decoder ring that I have, then you're not Christian enough. And so that is really what concerns me, because this type of rhetoric, along with groups that really are hate groups that want to, what is their end goal for people that they think shouldn't exist? And with this type of mentality, I do think that we should be fearful of this type of rhetoric, because while, yes, it's a straw man, it's effective with their base. And if they get the right people in power, then we don't get to make that decision. That decision is taken away from everyone except a small group of people. And that's what I think we're seeing attempted here. Now, as someone may have mentioned earlier about Republicans trying to flip-flop on the issue, Lake, she's bounced all over it. She was all for this bill last year or 2 years ago, and now she's going, that's not in line with what people in Arizona think. Yeah, it wasn't in that line with what people in Arizona thought 2 years ago, and it wasn't in line with what the people of this country thought when the United States Supreme Court decided to overturn Roe. But yes, it's sitting in your lap. Eat it. And I hope they keep eating it, because if anything good can come out of this, it's people being reminded that you have a very vivid choice in life. Do you want to continue the way things were in pre-Civil War United States, or are we hoping for something better? Personally, I'm really hoping for something better.
Indeed, I am as well. And Jason, I'm going to give the final word to you. I want you to expand. What would your message be to this generation that is pushing back on laws that take us back to a time period where slavery was the law of the land and girls could marry at 10?
I've probably got some opinions that I can't share on this channel. But what I can share, you have to look at it for what it is. These people are abusers, and this is typical rhetoric of an abuser. An abuser tends to pose themselves as the victim. They tend to act persecuted, over emotional. They do everything they can to make you feel like you're doing something to them. These people are abusers. These are people in positions of power with privilege, economic privilege. They have access to resources that we don't have, people, connections, jobs, the ears of people who are important, can make decisions, because ultimately all this shit is just run by people. I guess the message I would give would be the same thing I'm giving to my kid. Don't fucking believe them. Be skeptical, employ skepticism, employ reason. Sadly, in my kid's public school and middle school, in her science class, out of 25 students, last week, 22 of them said they didn't believe in evolution. She was later told that she worships the devil because she's an atheist, among other things that people tell her. These kids at this age are just now starting to differentiate, meaning their prefrontal cortex is going through a thing called synaptic pruning, blah, 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 neuroscience. So what I'm saying is they're still modeling the shit that they're hearing at home. They're still modeling their primary socialization agents. They're mimicking what they've been hearing for the past 12 years through the developmental years, and now testing it out in the public sphere. Sadly, we're seeing 92% rejection of evolution in the middle school in 2024. As a person who's developed vaccines and performed neurosurgery on primates, I can say with some degree of confidence that all the knowledge we have now is based on our understanding of evolution. All of our advances are based on our understanding of evolution and the mechanisms and pressures and blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I guess the message I could say is, don't fucking trust anybody and figure it out for yourself. The resources are there. Google Scholar is a real thing, right? You can even go to ChatGPT and ask for information on a thing in 15 sources in APA style. It's really not difficult to find information. It's just that people make you terrified of finding information, and there's punishments for it. So I don't know. That's just, don't fucking listen to anybody and find it out for yourself. That's about all I can tell anybody. And revolt.
In revolt, indeed. Well, the prospect of archaic laws being resurrected as evidenced by the Arizona Supreme Court decision is deeply concerning. It underscores the importance of vigilance in safeguarding secular principles and upholding the rule of law. Ultimately, the article serves as a call to action to resist the encroachment of religious extremism in governance and to defend fundamental rights and freedom. The upcoming referendum on abortion rights in Arizona presents also an opportunity for citizens to reject the regression that these policies have championed, and lawmakers to reaffirm their commitment to a secular and inclusive society. And if you, dear listener and viewer, want to be in a more inclusive environment, check out more content from the nonprofits by clicking here.
And crew is back.